think a lot of people are throwing money now down on Brooklyn.
Welcome into the Elias game plan. It is time to talk some NBA action. As a few games still remaining in the regular season, there is a race in the East for the seeding as we get closer to the postseason. And joining us, two of the finest from Elias, we've got Kevin Hines and Jimmy Wright. Jimmy, this is your first time on our podcast here, our videos. How you doing?
I'm good. Excited to be on the other side of the camera.
Yeah, welcome in. This is your debut. And so let's start with you first and foremost, because I'd love for you to kind of break it down. I know this is the second year of this play-in format in the NBA, and I do believe it's confusing for a few people. I know it still is a little confusing for me. So if you can, in Elias layman terms, if you can, break it down for us. How does the play-in work?
Sure. So a couple years ago, COVID changed the NBA playoff format, and then starting last year, they instituted this play-in tournament. So rather than having to grab a 1 through 8 seed in the conferences, now 1 through 10, right? So teams that are ranked by win percentage 7 to 10 enter into a play-in tournament, not playoffs yet. It's just kind of a hazy in between. So teams that are ranked 7th and 8th in win percentage are going to get 2 bites at the apple. Team 7 and Team 8 play each other. You win, you're into the playoffs. If you lose that game, you then go on to play another play-in game. Now 9 versus 10 by win percentage are playing each other, and they're going to have to win 2 games to get into the playoffs. So 7 and 8, you win, you're in. Teams that are ranked 9 versus 10 play. The winner of the 9 versus 10 game plays the loser of the 7 versus 8 game. That team gets the 8th spot of the playoffs. So you see the advantage of getting a 7 and an 8 seed. 9 and 10 going to have to win 2 games just to get in.
It's really going to be interesting, especially in the East. It's just the next week or so is going to be a lot of fun. And Kevin, I want to come to you here because probably none bigger a story as we get closer to the postseason than what's going on with the Nets, right? Like here in Brooklyn, New York, the government lifted the vax mandate. So now Kyrie back in action at the Clays, as we like to call it here, as opposed to the Barclays. A little street cred there. And which is great because there was some current concern if that vax mandate was not lifted once the Nets do get into the postseason. Of course, if they do win in advance from the play-in, you'd have Kyrie for away games. You wouldn't for home games, but that's not the issue anymore. And one step further, even more so, is the fact that Ben Simmons is dealing with a back issue. Now, I've never given birth to a child, but I have several friends who have, and an epidural is a pretty serious. Yeah. If Ben Simmons needs an epidural for his back in order to continue to practice, that's a huge red flag for me. So with that being said, and looking at the East, the Nets right now, as we're recording this video, the Nets now are sitting right now with that 8th seed. So if the season ended today, for example, they would have to play Cleveland in order to win. And if, of course, they did win, they would have the 7th seed. If they lost, and they would wait for the winners of, again, as of right now, Charlotte and Atlanta to try to win and make it in as the 8th seed. Now, obviously, a lot can change from here until, of course, that play-in scenario. But with that being said, I'd like to come to you and give me your thoughts on what's going on with the Nets, Kyrie, Ben Simmons, and what are your expectations for them, Kevin?
Well, as far as Ben Simmons goes, I wouldn't have any expectations on him returning this season with a back injury. That's a type of injury where that could go on for months. So I wouldn't, if I'm the Nets, I wouldn't be relying on Ben Simmons coming back. Having Kyrie Irving come back now for home games is obviously a big boost for their confidence. Unfortunately, on Sunday night, they had a big opportunity against Charlotte to win. They had a double-digit lead, and they blew the game and kind of spoiled Kyrie's homecoming there. So it's going to, even though Kyrie Irving's back, the Nets, they still have a lot to prove. I don't know if it's going to be enough. They haven't had a lot of time on court together, Durant and Kyrie. So it remains to be seen. This can go so many different ways in terms of who's going to play the Nets. And, there's a lot of talk of the top seeds. They don't want to face the Nets in the first round. And right now, the top 4 seeds, they're all tied in the loss column. So this could go a number of ways. And makes you wonder if some of these teams, like the Celtics losing Robert Williams and resting Tatum and Brown the other night, whether or not they really, is it beneficial for them to have a top seed? Usually you're playing for a top seed. It might not be that advantageous to face the Nets in the first round. Celtics might be better off resting some players. And if they fall to a 3 or a 4 seed, it's not the worst thing in the world. I don't think they're going to try to, but I think their priority would be to rest players and be ready for the postseason.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find it really interesting, which, by the way, just to throw out some futures odds here, the Nets to win the championship is plus 450. So they're the second favored to win the championship. The Suns, obviously the first at plus 290. But I think you're right. And what's really interesting is at the top, it's like it's topsy-turvy, right? It's like it's Heat, it's 76ers, it's Heat and 76ers. And of course, we know the trade that went down hard and wanting to get out of Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. Man, Kevin, can you imagine? Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, the Nets win that play-in game. They're the 7th seed, and the 76ers end up with the 2 seed. And that's your first round of the playoffs? Is the Nets and the 76ers?
A lot of fans are going to want to see. I mean, that could be a budding rivalry in the future if the two of them, especially if they face off. Now, it would be even more interesting if Ben Simmons was playing in that series, but I don't think that's going to happen if they face each other this year. But it's definitely a potential future rivalry between those two teams.
And one more thing I think we need to mention is the Toronto Raptors are right there at the 6th seed. It'll be interesting if they do fall in. Let's say Cleveland one-ups them and Cleveland ends up with the 6th seed. Raptors are the 7th seed. The Nets have to go to Toronto to play the Raptors. They still have the vax mandate. So right. Kyrie would not be able to play in that game, right?
That could be a very interesting scenario. Yeah, the Nets could find themselves in a situation where they're playing without Kyrie, which is, obviously they don't want that. He helps, having him and Durant together is what they need. When they're without either one of those players, they're basically a 500 team. So they need both of them on the court. And especially if Durant gets hurt and they're missing both of them, they're a losing team without either one of those players. So they really need the two of them to have a chance. I don't think what you just mentioned the odds before. It's really surprising to me that they're the second favorite behind Phoenix to win the championship when, a team like Memphis has been hitting on all cylinders this year, especially with even when Ja Morant is not playing, Memphis is still clicking. And I'm just surprised. I think a lot of people are throwing money now down on Brooklyn with the expectations that the Nets can win the title now. It's not going to be.
Who else do you like in the East, right? Mm-hmm. I think Milwaukee, defending champs, you have to like them. But does Miami really scare anybody all that much? Spoelstra and Butler almost fought the other day. Butler's great, obviously, but Toronto's not scaring anybody. Harden has not been great in Philly. Boston just lost Williams. I know that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are both tremendous scorers, but almost by default, you would say that the Nets have a pretty good chance to get out of the Eastern Conference at least.
But I'm with you, Kevin. It's very surprising that the team that is favored to come out of the East and win the championship is the Nets, and they have to play in a play-in game. And you have all the question marks with Kyrie and Ben Simmons not healthy. And I think they gave up a lot to the 76ers in regard to Drummond and Seth Curry. So I find that to be really interesting. And just to give you those odds out there, Kevin, I'm with you. The Bucks 6-1 to win the championship. I love the Boston Celtics, but with Robert Williams in that injury, with the meniscus injury, he's probably going to be out 6 to 9 weeks. Even though they traded for Derek White and Marcus Smart, play great. They both play great defense. Boston to win the championship plus 950. And you mentioned the Grizzlies, Kevin. They're 18-1 to win the championship. Just FYI.
That's a great bet there. I mean, they're going to have a tough road with Phoenix, and if Golden State's healthy. But I think the team to beat right now in the East are the Bucks. I mean, they're the defending champions. They're really hitting on all cylinders now. They got Brook Lopez coming back. He's back now, so. I'm looking for Milwaukee as the team to beat, but Jimmy's right as far as, the Nets, they have a chance. No 8 seed has ever been a threat like this before. If you go back to 1983, 84, As far as a 7 or an 8 seed during the current seeding format, only 2 teams made it as far as the conference finals. I mean, this is a unique situation with the Nets right now, but it's certainly not going to be easy. But they did definitely have a chance if the 2 of them are healthy. Because
if Irving played all season, they wouldn't be an 8.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And this is a superstar driven league. And when you have 2 superstars on the same team, they can carry pretty far.
Jimmy, Kevin, thank you so much. Stay tuned. It's going to be a wild ride as we get closer to the NBA postseason.